Hi, my name is Erin Merritt, and I'm a human services student who is conducting an interview of a human services worker for my final. This is Miss Sandra Holloman, who is a human services worker, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and the institution that she works for.
My name is Sandra Holloman, and I am an MTSS specialist at Cousins Middle School in Newton County.
Okay. She previously answered this question, but what is the position you currently hold, and what does that role look like for you, such as day-to-day tasks, personal goals, just like from when you clock in to clock out?
So MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support Specialist, and it's difficult to explain. So my role in the school system is to, in the general education population, if a student is having academic or behavioral struggles, then I figure out what's causing the struggle. Sometimes it's educational gaps, sometimes it's behavioral instruction, sometimes their needs are greater than that, and maybe they need to transition to a special education population. But I work with them while they're in general education to try to give them the supports they need in order to be successful in a general education environment. My day-to-day task could be anywhere from coaching teachers through what an effective intervention would look like, coming into the classroom and actually helping teachers provide interventions to students. It could be that a student is having a lot of trouble behaviorally that day and their intervention is not working, so I can go into the classroom and help support that student. We also kind of coordinate with speech services. We coordinate with occupational therapy, with physical therapy, with counselors, and with mental health clinicians, depending on the needs of individual students. Right now, my caseload is about 150, so I serve 150 students and their families to coordinate those services. And my day is never the same. It just kind of depends on the student's needs that day, because I can start out with a plan, maybe get some paperwork done, work individually, doing some progress monitoring with students, maybe screen students coming in or who have a need. But at any given time, if a student has an immediate need or a behavior crisis or anything, then I stop what I'm doing and go assist with that student.
That sounds like a very complicated position to be in, just because you don't really have, there's no like rule book to play by. It's just kind of, it just sounds very need-based, and so it just sounds like it would take a lot of personal opinion and genuine understanding of like the student and the curriculum and things of that nature.
Yeah, you have to have a clear understanding of curriculum and assessments and what the student should be learning, what the students' expectations are within the classroom and on the state level. And if they're not on grade level, what do you do to provide help to that student to get them to grade level? It's just ever changing. I mean, we have a set of rules, like we have a handbook, but our handbook basically gives us an outline of procedures and how to do paperwork properly, how to conduct meetings, make sure we're thorough in helping the students and the parents understand how the school is helping their child. we go over we progress monitor weekly, and so all of the students have academic and behavioral data. So we go over that data with parents to show whether what we're doing is being successful or maybe it's not. And if it's not, then as a team, we may consider special education testing, because if we've exhausted everything that we can do in a general ed setting, then we start transitioning to testing for a possible special education setting. And when that happens, I would coordinate with the school psychologist and work one-on-one with them, talking about the individual student needs. She or he may kind of guide me in what other services there are available, or maybe interventions that I haven't tried while they're doing testing. And then I also, for an initial IEP eligibility, I would write we call it sections 1 through 5, but it's just of the eligibility paperwork, and that would just mean going over what all we've tried and the meeting notes of that, and test scores and data to show that we've exhausted everything that we could do in a general ed setting. So there's that part. There's lots to my job, and there's nobody, like, I'm the only person at the school who does what I do. So sometimes it can be difficult because not everybody understands it completely. I think everybody understands their role in the process and what they are supposed to do to assist students. But sometimes I run into a little bit of stress because of their lack of understanding of everybody else's components. So at times they will say, well, why can't this happen? And it's because you're crossing over into somebody else's requirements or specialization, or so that's difficult too, that being the only person in the building who really understands every aspect of the process.
What steps did you take to earn the position?
So, oh my gosh.
You can start with like early education, certifications.
Okay, so I've been trained as an educator. That was my first bit of training, because obviously I work at a school in a school setting. And then I guess in about 2010, I was asked to be the RTI chair, and RTI eventually changed into MTSS. So RTI meant response to intervention. I was asked to be the grade level chair for RTI. Had no clue as to what that was, and more voluntold. I wasn't really asked. I was told to be the RTI chair for the grade level. And after being put in that position, I began to research more about what that is so that I could do my job well. And I can't say that my first couple of years that I did do that well. I mean, I was just kind of floundering because I had no training. And it was just things that I had read and the research that I had done and what does it look like. And I was doing more of the compliance pieces. I was just getting it done, checking it off a list instead of, I don't know that what I was doing was effective looking back on it now, but doing the best I can. And then I continued to be the RTI chair at that school for several years. And then I transitioned to a high school position, and in 2007, 17 or 18, I can't remember which, I was helping out in the process because the high school was not doing really anything with it. And my principal asked me to go and get a certification. At the time, the certification was called SST coordinator. And I don't know why in education we have 10 acronyms for the same thing, but we do. So SST is Student Support Team, which is also a part of RTI and MTSS. And so I went to get that certification, and in that class through Griffin Risa, and it lasted a year. In that class at Griffin Risa, that's where I really learned what effective intervention looks like, what effective supports are out there. And I began to lead that work at Spalding High School in Griffin, Georgia. And then I stayed there and taught. So at the time when I was RTI chair, classes, and at Spalding High School, a lot of the barriers that I was facing in Spalding County schools were that I was a classroom teacher, a full-time classroom teacher, and then a portion of my day, which usually equated into an hour to an hour and a half, depending on which school, I was kind of expected to serve students in MTSS through that process. And I still couldn't do it effectively with teaching a full course load plus doing that. So when I found out that Newton County offers a full-time position just doing MTSS, because honestly I had gotten kind of burned out of trying to do two jobs at the same time, in the same amount of time that I was expected to do one. I just kind of wanted to do one or the other, just either let me teach or let me do RTI or MTSS. And when I found out that Newton County had a MTSS specialist position, and that the MTSS specialist, so my boss is at central office, and she gives the basic parameters of what we do, and we get training and things like that from her. And then there's one person at each of the schools in the county that kind of make the work happen, that oversee the work and make sure that the processes are effective. And so I was hired there to do just MTSS in 2021, and that's where I've been since doing that work.
How has the transition from being a classroom teacher to a classroom teacher and an RTI specialist to just an MTSS specialist been?
When I went to Newton County, because the way they set up their processes are so different than the way that, we all have state required guidelines. But many schools don't do it effectively, even today. Most school systems do not do the MTSS work effectively because they don't have the staff dedicated to it. So I would say that it's been a good, positive experience to move from trying to do both into moving to a position that's all I do, simply because I can dedicate all my time to helping struggling students. And I'm not doing lesson plans and grading papers, and I don't have 36 kids looking up at me waiting for instruction while I'm worried about, these 10 who really don't have what they need and how to coordinate services. So it's been a positive experience because I think that I'm more effective because I can focus on one job. Also, Newton County has really dedicated a lot of funds to help these struggling students, and we've done a lot of training through the state to make sure that we are doing it correctly and that we are helping students. And we are at a point now where we're moving out of a compliance fidelity phase into we are now seeing the results. Like, I've given these students extra help for 2 and 3 years now, and they're being successful. So students who may have started on tier 2 or tier 3 in 2nd and 3rd grade without effective supports, they would continue to be on tier 2. They don't fill in those gaps without good help or targeted help. And because we can really focus on targeting what kind of help they need and we're giving it to them, we're seeing movement in our caseload. So we're seeing students who have been very successful. They've met their academic or behavioral goals, and then they roll down, we call it tier 1, which is just a general education setting, and they don't need any supports anymore. For example, at the beginning of this year, there were 200 students on my caseload, a little over 200. And we as teams, because it's not just me, it's everybody that's working to give this child help, we have released probably 60-something students, 70-something students off the process because they've tested out, they've met their goals, meaning what we're doing for them is effective in closing those gaps. I've also tested 7 students for special education, or recommended 7 students for special education testing this year. And all but 1 have qualified for special education. And I don't know that they would have gotten those services either if there wasn't a person dedicated to make sure that we're trying everything we can, because sometimes they just need more support than we can give them in general education.
To me, it sounds like that is a position that every public and private school needs.
I would agree with that. I would agree that it's a very important position. And in some schools, they have the position, but they don't. For example, I think Spalding County has an opening right now for an MTSS specialist to do what I do, but it's a part-time position. It's a 49% position. And I don't think that outsiders that don't do the work, I think you can read the state requirements and think, oh, well, we can get a classroom teacher to do that. Or, oh, we can get a part-time person to do it. It's a full-time plus position, and you're never going to have an effective process if you don't have a person overseeing it. Oftentimes, they put it on counselors' plates at the school, and counselors don't have time to dedicate they have other responsibilities. They don't have time to do another full-time job, or they put the interventions and the progress monitoring on teachers, and teachers haven't been trained, so they don't know what an effective intervention is. So they go and do the progress monitoring, sometimes not. So I would agree that I think every school should have a position like that. And when you notice a child struggling, because early intervention is key, I feel like, because I teach in a middle school, that I shouldn't have 7 students that I'm testing for special education. I think that those students should have been identified in elementary school and get the help they need, because the earlier you can intervene and the earlier you can identify that a student has some struggles and you can help them, the better. But that is down from, I think the first year I was there, we had 10 or 12 requests for testing. So it's getting better in Newton County. But I wouldn't say that in most school systems it's getting better, because they don't have someone dedicated to overseeing it.
What made you choose the career path you are on?
Well, education. The MTSS specialist, it was almost like sink or swim. Here it is. So I guess I didn't choose it. It kind of chose me, or it was chosen for me, because when I started doing research on it, like I said, I had no clue. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to do it effectively, and I kind of started doing my own research, and then doing both. Like I said, I was overwhelmed, but I was Spalding County school system paid for me to get training specifically for that, but I don't know that I would have elected to take the training had I not been asked to take the training. So I mean, I'm thankful for it, and I think that it was kind of fate that that's what it is, because I love my job and I feel successful. I get to help the students who most need my help, the students who are often forgotten in a classroom, fall through the cracks, never get to where they're, never grow to their full potential, because with a classroom of 30, it's easy to overlook the one child that really needs you, especially if they're quiet and compliant, and so I guess it kind of chose me. I really didn't choose it, but it chose me, and that's okay, because I'm thankful that it did, and like I said, I really love doing what I'm doing. I think I'm making the most impact probably that I've ever made in education, and this is my 22nd year in education.
What's been your greatest career achievement so far, and what is something you would like to achieve in the future?
My greatest career achievement.
And this can be teaching or MTSS.
I mean, I've gotten several awards that I really hold dear to me. So in 2015, I was Teacher of the Year for Rehoboth Road Middle School in Spalding County, and that was a high honor. In 2000, I think it was 13, Office Max. I don't even know how I was nominated or got the award, but Office Max came into the school and honored me for making a huge impact on students' education because of my test scores. And at the time, 100% of my students had passed the state standardized testing in reading and ELA. And it was my understanding that that had not happened in any school in the county with any teacher. So they came in and they gave me over $1,000 worth of free stuff. I was just drowning in stuff. So like different office supplies, teaching aids. They even gave me a desk chair. So that I was very thankful for, and kind of, I don't know, kind of taken aback with that. And then last year, at the end of last year, at my school, which was kind of awesome too. They have the equivalent to Teacher of the Year. So I was nominated for Department Person of the Year in a specialized area. So that's all the support services, academic coaches, counselors, all of the like psychologists, and so all of those support people. So I was voted specialized area person teacher of the year. So I'm serving my current school as department employee of the year. So all of those things have meant a lot to me, and basically because somebody recognized that I try to do the best job that I can possibly do for the success of students.
And anything you'd like to achieve in the future?
So I'm currently in school to get my leadership certificate, and in education, what that means is if you were going to be an administrator of any kind, you have to have a leadership endorsement on your certificate. And so right now I am in classes to take my leadership. What that's going to look like for me, I'm not sure. I haven't really thought it out that far. But if I ever wanted to be like a county office coordinator of MTSS, then I would have to have the leadership. Or if I wanted to be a building level administrator, so an assistant principal, a principal, then I can't move up to that level without the leadership endorsement. So right now I'm taking classes to get that. Just not 100% sure what I'm gonna do with it now, but I do have goals of moving beyond. I feel like once you have the knowledge and the skill and the ability, it's a good thing for you to move beyond your current role so you can share that knowledge with other people, because I am only one person and I can only impact so many students a year. But if I'm in a higher role and I can teach others to do what I do, whether it's another MTSS specialist, whether it's an assistant principal, whether it's a teacher, so whomever, then my impact could reach lots more children, and that's kind of what I would like to see.
That's all the questions I had for you. So thank you for being my interviewee.
You are welcome. It was a pleasure.